Welcome to the Driving Forward podcast. It's Thursday, February 6th. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. This is our second podcast of the week. We haven't done two in a week in a while, so it's a little different. But happy to be here. If you're at Manifest next week, we're kicking off the Freight Movement and Broker Carrier Summit Big Road Tour. Come join us and our partners at Black Tap on the Venetian Casino floor from 7 to 10 p.m. on Monday. There's limited space, so sign up now. Actually, I think we're full for the most part, but we're expecting to roll a bunch of people through over a 3-hour period. I think we can handle 120 people. We have like 160 or 70 signed up. But so if you do come at 7 o'clock and we're a little full, check back in a little bit later. We'd love to have you come in. We're going to be open from 7 to 10. We'd love to see everybody we possibly can. We'll post the Eventbrite link in the comments. Next week, following that Big Road Tour launch, Tuesday, February 11th, we're live at Manifest. We'll have a great discussion about leadership, sales, and security with Nick Darman, the CEO of Elvis. We're actually going to have Ava Barnes on as well. Ava's their vice president of marketing. We'll be talking about Elvis's unique approach and story. And if you're not familiar with it, you'll definitely want to listen in. As we've talked about before, and we'll continue to talk about going forward, freight fraud is evolving, and cyber threats are hitting the supply chain harder than ever. Thursday, February 20th, Danielle Spinelli from Descartes joins us to break down the latest scams, cybersecurity must-knows, and how to protect your business from digital hackers. Super excited about that one. All right. So for decades, every road, every mile, trucking keeps this country running, keeping our economy moving, our shelves stocked, our businesses alive. But here's the brutal truth. The industry is at a breaking point. The average age of a truck driver is pushing 50. Schools aren't teaching trucking as a real career path. And we're staring down a future where there simply won't be enough drivers to keep this country running. Meanwhile, young people are drowning in student debt for degrees they might not even use, while a six-figure career in trucking is sitting right in front of them, ignored, misunderstood, and dismissed. So why is that? Why is an industry that built America struggling to attract the next generation? And more importantly, how do we fix it? Today, we're getting real answers from someone who isn't just talking about the problem. She's out there solving it. Lindsey Trent is the president and co-founder of the Next Generation in Trucking Association, a nonprofit that's on a mission to change the way young people see trucking. She's breaking down barriers, building programs in high schools, and proving that trucking isn't just a job, it's a future. This isn't just an industry conversation. This is about the future of trucking, the future of work, and maybe, just maybe, the future of America's workforce. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
It's really great to have you on. This is a long time coming. We actually had talked about doing this a long time ago, so I very much so appreciate that we finally made it. So why don't we start off with you telling us about yourself? How did you get, or just your whole journey? Let's do a little 5-minute introduction on Lindsey Trent.
Sure. So I live in Louisville, Kentucky. but I'm originally from Indiana. I graduated from Purdue, and I had a background in sales. Well, I eventually, about 13 years ago, got a sales job in trucking. I knew nothing about the industry, but instantly I fell in love with it. I loved the people, I mean, down to earth people. And I loved the fact that we touched every industry, right? It was one day I would be at a trucking company that hauled auto parts, and the next day I'd be at a food distributor, and then it was somebody that was in the lumber, building houses, and I just thought that was so neat. And during that entire time, so I started off doing driver staffing. And during that entire time, we always talked about the problem, the driver shortage, the aging workforce. And, but that's what we did. We complained, we talked, not much else. And then I went and worked for Ryder, and we had the same problem with, we needed drivers, but we also needed diesel mechanics. So I started to get a little bit involved with some workforce things. I helped a community college in Kentucky start their CDL program. And then I helped a diesel tech program, at high school start a diesel tech program. So I was like, well, this seems like this is the answer, is really starting to try to get more education programs started and really focusing on getting younger people in the industry. And about the same time, somebody told me about a guy by the name of Dave Dine, who started a high school trucking program out in California. And I'm like, that's an answer right there, getting young people skilled in the trucking industry. And so Dave and I started talking and dreaming up this idea to create a nonprofit and solving an industry-wide problem with an industry-wide solution. And now I've been thrown into this whole education world and really learning about education, career tech education, and everything about it. And I've learned, I'm in several groups, construction, they've been doing it for 50 years and really focusing on getting career tech ed programs in high schools, woodworking, automotive, right? I talked to a state. I'm like, hey, how many auto programs do you have in your high schools? And they'll say, oh, we have 100. And then how many diesel? Oh, we've got 5. So, right. Okay, well, where's the disconnect here? And why don't we have, like, why isn't our industry represented? And the other thing is there's $1.3 billion of federal funding every single year that goes to career technical education. If we don't have programs, then we're not getting any of that federal funding going into training our industry. So what we're trying to do is to create programs to train our future workforce and, create more programs, get more of the funding to funnel into training our people. So that's kind of our background and our story and why and how we started what we're doing, and it's been really successful.
No, that's near and dear to my heart. I mean, I've been in trucking for coming up on 30 years, and we started our conversation, and I don't know if you remember how we started our conversation, but my son is just finishing a diesel tech program this year. So my oldest son. So he went down that road, and he just turned 20. And so he'll be getting out of that program soon. He's already working. He's been working through the program. So he actually had a sponsorship or apprenticeship that he worked through the program. And so he's been kind of working on and off throughout that. And, as soon as he gets out of school, he'll be working for that company full time. And that's a great program. And on the diesel tech side, there are programs. I don't think there's enough programs that are like that, to be honest with you. But there is some places like that. On the driver's side, there's a huge gap between 18 and 21, and then many companies don't hire at 21. So, that I'm going to skip ahead on one of my questions. The trucking industry desperately needs young, skilled drivers. And I don't want to get into a debate about whether or not we have enough drivers, because that's a whole different topic. But I believe that the younger drivers and that desire to come into the industry and what we do with them after the fact is another discussion. But that career path of 18, when you graduate school, if you don't want to go to college, if you want to, or there may be a schooling program that you need to go through for a period of time, but uh, we have a law for the most part. There are some pilot programs that have been tested out, but we have a law that really prevents 18-year-olds from driving interstate until they're 21. And, at the same time, young adults can enlist in the military and operate heavy machinery and they can go to war. But do you think that restriction's outdated? And what do you think, needs to be done to change there, to kind of create that career path from 18, to allow that to happen so we can see that career path into trucking?
Yeah, I definitely think it is outdated. But I also think that if we could build out programs like we're trying to do, we're not trying to get any 18-year-old behind the wheel to drive. This is a specific young person that really this is their goal. This is what they want to do. And maybe they're a fourth generation driver
Right.
out there that's like, I want to do this. And the program that Dave's created, it's 210 hours that you take as a high school student. So you're taking it as a senior. It's 30 hours of driver simulation time. It's well-rounded. It's leadership skills. It encompasses the entire industry, but safety is number one, right? When they graduate, they go on to get their behind the wheel training at a community college or a private driving school. So there's more training there. And then when they graduate from there, ideally, they're going to go into an apprenticeship program and even further their knowledge and their mentorship in the industry. So we're not just talking about any 18-year-old, because, you might say, well, my 18-year-old, that, I would never want her to be a professional driver. Well, it's not for every 18-year-old. So we're out there looking specifically for somebody who has this passion, has the safety, behavioral traits. We highly recommend an assessment called job behaviors. And really, if we can create these programs that's investing all of these hours into these students, and this is what they want to do, then I think they're going to be a safer driver out there than somebody who's 25. They didn't really know what they want to do. And they're like, well, maybe I'll try this. I have failed at some other things. I'm going to try driving and see if I like it. And then they go to a school and get training, right? We're talking about a longer process.
Yeah, it's all about intention. They have intention to follow this path instead of this other thing didn't work, so now I'm going to try driving. So, and that's that 21 route and usually it doesn't always happen at 21. It's at 25 or 27, and it's a second career or a third career or 45 or 55. I've been this in a while. I've seen attorneys and doctors and every career that's out there come through driving, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But also to create this career path that starts there, I think is much healthier for the industry as well, because somewhere 5-10 years down the road, these kids coming out of high school, because that's what they are, kids coming out of high school eventually look at other roles in the industry too, and it's a great way to learn and grow within the industry too. So
Absolutely. And Gen Z, they're motivated. They are entrepreneurial. So chances are maybe they're going to become an owner operator, or maybe they want to grow into management, right? So we need to give them these opportunities. And one of the things that we need to strongly consider is that right now there's 76 million baby boomers. There's only 70 million Gen Zers. And we have a lot of baby boomers who are drivers. They're retiring, and we're not backfilling them with
Right.
people. So every industry, every skilled trade is seeing the fact that they are going to be very short. They're skilled tradespeople. And so if we aren't getting these young people, then the other industries are going to get them. So we've got to start doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gen Z is a different breed. They want flexibility, they want purpose, they want work-life balance. And trucking's kind of built on long hours, on structure, and on discipline. And you know, do you think that what we offer, what trucking actually offers to young people, to the Gen Z crowd, is a fit, or do you think that we're going to have to adjust to fit their values, and if so, how?
So I think a little bit of both, right? I think that if we can have routes that are, where you're meeting somebody in the middle and they can turn around and sleep at home, I think that we need to try some opportunity. We need to try to do things like that to make it more flexible for young people. Start trying to think outside of the box, right? If you can give somebody 2 days off in a row, and maybe it's during the week, but trying to think outside the box of providing more flexibility. But I also to think of two things. I think that the sooner that we can get them working and working hard, they're going to be used to that hard work. And they're not going to have time to be like, oh, well, I just like, laying around and playing on my Xbox. And they're going to also really like the money that they get. And
Right.
that's going to incentivize them to keep working hard because it's providing all these amazing things for their families.
Absolutely. I think, hitting on that, this is something I've said for 20 some odd years, is trucking does not have a driver shortage. It has a good job shortage. And when we continue to hire for the same job that we had in 1975, we do not have the same breed of hand or driver that we had in 1975. I'm 47 years old, and we're still hiring for the same driver that was driving when I was born. And that is our problem, and when I was running a fairly large trucking company 20 some odd years ago, we we crafted good jobs for drivers that did exactly what you just said. We did a lot of slip seating. We created a lot of static routes that even if you were out overnight, you knew exactly where you were going, and you knew when you were going to be home, and you could make plans. You could make plans on a weekly basis, and you knew you'd be home. So that's really what the future has to be. And not a lot of fleets have adopted those type of policies and those type of practices, but not enough fleets have adopted that. And I think that is a wave that's coming much faster than what it was 20 years ago because of that generation gap. So I'm 100% behind that. Um, and I think it's going to be somewhat of a rude awakening because we're going to see some numbers change here pretty quick over the next 10 years. So the let's talk a little bit about college versus trade to go with that. A lot of parents believe that not going to college is a means of failure, that kids need to go to college. That's just the way that it is. But the reality is, trade jobs can lead to six-figure salaries very quickly, and with very little or no student debt.
Mhm.
Have you had conversations with parents who just don't get it, and how do you convince them that a career in trucking or a career in trades are a smart career move?
Yeah, we're trying to tell that story that you can really be successful and have a good career without going to college because really not everybody's made for college. And we're seeing statistics that big percentages of students, they graduate high school and they enroll in college, they complete a year or two, they have debt and they drop out, but they don't have the degree.
Right.
And then, or they get the degree, but they can find a job that's making $40,000 when they graduate. Whereas you can start at 18 and being you could be a class B CDL driver, a straight truck driver, and make more than $40,000. And
Absolutely.
so, right. So it's telling that story. It's making the job better. It's making the job more respectable and letting them see those professional drivers out there that, and really showcasing who professional drivers are and trying to let them see that this is a very respectable career and their young, their young son or daughter could own their own truck, own their own business. They could be a driver for a company and make a great career and be a part of an amazing community. So it's really, I think I see the shift happening. I think it is a slow process, but I also see people, budgets are tightening and more student debt's going to be happening, or the student could either hey, I'm going to work. And then maybe they decide they want to go to college, or they could be a driver and work their way through college. There's so many opportunities. We got to get out of this mindset of I'm 18, I graduate, and then I go to college, right? And I get student loan debt. We've got to switch that narrative, and I need to be okay with it. You need to be okay with your kid not to go into college, and everybody needs to be okay with it. And I think that's what's going to help make this narrative change.
I agree. I think it depends on, what the child wants to do. If they're set on something that requires college, then that's what they need to do. If they're going into college with that exploratory viewpoint and the confidence is not there, then maybe that's not the right course for them anymore. If you just know that they're going to end up in that route, then the trades are a good option for them. So, and this has been a common topic amongst many people I know these days. So many people I know, and to be honest with you, it's almost GLCS is a technology company, and there are kids and young adults coming out of the trades that make more than software developers, 1st to 5 year, or even potentially more than that, software developers. And that's a high, if not one of the highest paying jobs coming out of college today. So that just lays that out as, that's how successful it is in the trades these days. So that's how hard it is to get people to go into these roles. Same thing with driving. I mean, the pay is right in that same range. These are the same categories of pay range. So, if someone wants a successful job, it is out there. A good owner operator, to look down a career path 5 or 10 years, if you can get that, a good owner operator that's successful is a large amount of net income if they operate their truck in a very good way. So let's switch the conversation away, and then we'll come back to this kind of line of questioning a little bit later. So every career has a turning point. Every career has a turning point, one that defines one with a defining moment that just changes everything. And if you look back on what your single most pivotal moment was in your career that set you on this path to advocate for young people in trucking, was it a success, a failure, or something unexpected? But what was that moment that set you on this path specifically?
Well, that is such a good question. And I could probably point to a lot of things. And starting Next Gen was probably a buildup of just talking about this problem and knowing that we need a solution as an industry, and there's no solution out there. And so that's why we created Next Gen, right? We were solving a problem. But it was really interesting what I quickly learned as we were working with schools and teachers and hearing stories, it was, we're starting these programs, and these programs are changing these young people's lives. And so a couple examples is my local high school's diesel tech program. The teacher said to us, we were out there giving a donation to their program, and he said to us, I tell my students, if you're doing everything that you should as a diesel tech, when you graduate high school here and graduate this program, you're going to be making $60,000 easy, right? And then in the same breath, he said, most of their parents don't make that combined.
Yeah.
And that's just the trajectory that these programs, when we create them, what we can get them on. Dave had a student, so he, started this high school trucking program at Patterson High School. And his first year, he got all the problem students. They said, oh, hey, we're going to put this kid in your truck driving class. Well, lo and behold, the students loved his class. And they started getting a glimmer of success. They weren't succeeding in traditional education classes, right? They're like, why do I need to learn this math? Why do I need this science? But when they got connected to trucking, they saw why they needed this, and they saw a future for themselves. He had a student, Javier, whose dad, midway through the semester, came and said, I want to shake your hand. And Dave was like, why? And he said, you have changed my son. He's done a complete 180. Before he was in his class, he was running around with the wrong crowd. He was active in gang activity. But when he started Dave's class, he really could see a future for himself. And he is now an owner operator and runs his own business, right? Whereas he was going down the wrong road, but found something he loved. He was like, I'm good at this. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. It was bringing down his self-esteem. But then when he took trucking, he was good at it and he saw a future, and now trucking is his future.
No, that's a great story. I think that's, not everyone has to go down the same path. I think that's we've created this narrative in the US that everyone has to go the college path. It's just college as a default path to success. And yet we have a massive skilled labor shortage, really. I mean, and particularly in trucking and diesel mechanics. I think there's other areas. If you just look at diesel mechanics across the board in many industries, we're missing that. Do you think, or how, beyond just this program, and you kind of talked about this a little bit before, but how do we continue to break through that system to make trucking or on the diesel mechanic side, going beyond trucking, a respected choice rather than the backup plan? You've talked about this a little bit, but what's the longer term, bigger plan here?
I think we're going to see more career technical education programs in schools, and schools expanding those programs, whether it's a trucking program or culinary or HVAC, plumbing. And so I think parents, students, they're going to start seeing more opportunities to get a skill. Now, whether or not they use that skill to go right into the workforce, or they continue on to go to college and use that skill, right, for the betterment of their home or their car. And so I think that we're going to really continue to see skilled trades growing at the high school level. And I meet with schools every day that are like, hey, we've heard about the driver shortage. I see a ton of distribution centers popping up all over my community. I see billboards that need drivers. And we've heard you can help us start a trucking program at our school. I had that meeting today. I had that meeting yesterday with 20 schools in Texas that are like, we want to do this. And so it is providing those opportunities and really getting the industry involved. I mean, the industry needs to get involved in education and bringing students out to their facilities. They need to have drivers go and talk to their students. We had last week, I was at a junior achievement event here, and we had the Kentucky Road team. So there was 2 gentlemen from FedEx there. There was some Gordon Food Service drivers, one who's 22 years old and got his CDL with Gordon Food Service at 21. And he was so proud of what he did and how he got to where he was. And he was so proud, and he loved talking to the kids and telling them, hey, I didn't want to go to college, but I wanted a good job. And now I have this great job that I really like. And he was so proud. He was telling all of us all about his job. And if you're a driver and you're good at it, you kind of nerd out at it, right? You're like, I have to back up into these parking lots and deliver. He had to deliver food to Culver's, and it's a challenge, right? And he's good at it. And so it's so fun for young people to connect and see professionals and see that it's not like the stereotype of what they think. And so I think a lot of these students want good opportunities for career paths. So we've got to help show the career paths. When I talk to a room of 30 safety professionals and I ask how many of you started off as a driver, probably 25 out of 30 raise their hand that they started off as a driver. So
Right.
Showcasing the career paths that we have in the industry and where you can start and where you can end up is what we've got to do to get the big picture out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having conversations with people that start as a driver. I started as a driver, and you move through that and you see where the possibilities go. It's always great to show where the careers can lead. So we had,
and I love too, like my Kentucky Road team, hey, I've been driving for FedEx for 38 years. Love what I do, talking to students about it. And now his son drives for FedEx, and they're proud of their careers, and they should be. I mean, they're professional drivers. So it's getting that image out there.
absolutely. Yeah. The long-term career drivers, the 5 or 10-year driver who switched to something else that supports the industry. We had the NMFTA on a few weeks ago, and their head of cybersecurity started as a driver. So he's now supporting the industry from a cybersecurity perspective, but came into the industry as a driver. And that narrative is wonderful. Just that he understands what it's like to be in trucking and is defending it through technology now today. But it's always great to see how the paths, when you least expect it, where the path goes from holding the steering wheel to wherever it may go, whether that's a career driver or through the office or wherever it may be. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here, just about a minute. And if you guys have any questions for Lindsey on anything at all, please feel free to queue them up, and we will be back here shortly. Thanks for listening. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise. And we're back. Uh, all right. So queuing up the back half of this, let's start with a good question here. So success is often built on failure. What's the most difficult professional lesson you've had to learn the hard way? And how did it shape the way you lead and advocate for next generation of trucking professionals today?
Well, I was never good at these like job interviews because they ask these
Deep,
questions. And I'm
deep
like,
questions.
I don't know. Oh my gosh. Okay. So failure. I think that we learn from failure, right? I think that
Right.
probably the best way to learn is failure.
Absolutely.
Um, I can tell you some of the things I love and some of the things I don't love, right? Running an association, I walk this fine line of I've got to get members and companies to support our mission, and I've got to collect bills, and I've got to get them continue to sell them on the fact that they should support our organization. Um, and then I get to then have conversations with these schools and get them excited about starting trucking programs and getting their students excited and doing field trips and doing promotional events for students and getting them excited just or even knowledgeable about the trucking industry, right? And so I think for me it's like trying to walk that fine line of doing the mission and having that be amazing and great, and then sometimes doing the things that aren't as fun, but are necessary in order to keep our lights on, right? We've got to have those partnerships in order to because we're a nonprofit, and that's how we get our support is because of the industry, because the industry believes what we're doing, and we've got a lot of things to benefit our members as well. But a lot of times some carriers are like, hey, we just want to support you because we know that you're out there making a difference for our industry. And so that's, I think that's probably how I would answer that. And some days, like last week, I was just having one of those bad days, and I had a meeting with one of my members who's a trucking company, and he actually decided that he wanted to teach the CDL course that Dave started at a juvenile correctional education facility.
Okay.
And I got to have a conversation with him and a couple of his students last week after I had a hard day, right? Of just, sometimes you just get the door slammed in your face and it's discouraging. But then I'm having a conversation with these two students, these two kids. They made bad choices, right? And they recognize that. But now they're getting the opportunity while they're in this juvenile facility to get their CDL with their driver simulation training. They're learning all about the industry. They're really excited about it, and they want hope. They want a future for themselves, and they see this as a way to do it. And so, like, that just flips a switch, right? It's just
Right.
helping kids.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be a sponsor or a member of Next Gen Trucking, and what that's all about, and what benefits come from them, and what the experience like, and let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
our members, we
we
connect with them, and so we are the people that we've created the first list that did not exist before we started it of high school diesel tech programs and their teachers and high school CDL programs. And so we also have the community college list. And so we connect our members to those lists. Every program has an advisory board. And so getting them connected to those programs in order to hopefully fill their workforce with these students, right? So a lot of what we do is really connecting them to school programs. We have workforce development meetings where I get on phone calls with companies that have people from around the country, and we are helping them with their workforce issues and helping them build pathways and mentorship programs. And so, those are some of the member benefits. This year, we're starting a new program where we are right now. We have a Career Catalyst Award. So companies who are doing a great job bringing young people into the industry or entry level people. And maybe it is a college student just graduated at 22, but they're coming to work for you in HR, or maybe you've built an amazing mentorship program and you want to showcase that. And so we are doing a Career Catalyst Company Award and highlighting those companies that are great to work for entry level talent. And then later on this year, we're going to do an award for kind of the rising stars, rookie under 30, around driver appreciation and tech appreciation week. So if you have a driver that is, maybe they're 25, but they are awesome and you just want to recognize them, we are going to have that Rising Star Award for drivers or for technicians later this year. So recognition. And then providing resources. We have a whole resource library with white papers and resources and educational resources that our members can utilize to really help them focus on workforce development and working with education.
Excellent. Excellent. And your typical membership is what type of company?
Great question. It really anybody in the trucking industry. So we have got dealers, we've got carriers, we've got allied people. So people who just sell to trucking companies and care about the industry and want to support our organization. And so and then we've got drivers, we've got people who they're like, hey, I'm a salesperson and I want to join and support your organization, or I'm a driver or a technician and I believe in what you're doing. And then we have free student memberships. So students can join for free.
Perfect. Excellent. Anything else that I didn't ask you there about kind of the day-to-day functions of Next Gen that you think we should know?
Yeah. One of our big things is we're all about, one is about advocacy. So advocating for career technical education. And so legislatively making sure that the funding is happening and it's going towards trucking. Also, supporting the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. So those are some big things that we do. And we're also making sure that trucking is represented as a career brand. And what I mean when I say that is every year we're at a lot of these education conferences representing the trucking industry. So FFA, Future Farmers of America, there's about 70,000 students that go to that conference, and we've got a driver simulator and a truck and VR headsets where you can change the oil in a truck. And we go to the School Counselors Association every summer where 6,000 school counselors are at. We are the voice of trucking, and these conferences are expensive, but it's what we have to do to be the voice and to talk to counselors and tell them you have students that might be a better fit to go into the trucking industry, and we want to make sure you're connected to us. And so by supporting our organization, you're supporting and being the voice of the trucking industry out there to education and people who influence education.
No, that's great. I appreciate that answer. Wow. That's perfect. Wow. So moving along a little bit, trucking is often seen as a last resort career choice by many people, and to be honest with you, by their parents. So it could kind of go along that narrative that we were talking earlier. So why do you think that negative perception exists? So I'm trying to tie this into what you just said about the education point. When you go out and talk with the educators, why do you think that negative perception exists? And how do we, as not only an industry, but as society, Because I think the perception of trucking has changed substantially over the last 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
How do we truly change that, and not just kind of a surface change, but how do
Mhm.
we change that in the minds of the parents, the educators, and kids and or young people as well?
Well, I mean, I think we all need to respect truck drivers that are out there on the road, and companies need to hold their drivers in high esteem. I think a lot of companies do a great job doing that. I think that if we've got to be out there. I really feel like I never knew a driver before I started in the industry, I don't think. Um, I just didn't know how professional a lot of these drivers are. We need to we need to make sure that they know that there's a lot of women out there in the industry. I love driving down the road, and I feel like now more and more I see women behind the wheel, and it's just amazing. I mean, women in trucking has done a great job of really promoting women in the industry and how much they're contributing, how safe they are, and really telling those stories, being involved in education. Um, I think a lot of states, a lot of companies are doing a great job, and we just need to continue being out there, spreading the message, and making sure that they understand that trucking is a positive career choice. It's an essential job, right? During COVID, the heroes on the highway were the truckers. And we know today the heroes on the highways are truckers in so many instances. And so continuing to share that narrative, I think is really important.
I agree, and just everything associated with trucking. We have to continue putting those messages out there. The ATA's Nothing Without Trucking initiatives, continuing to talk about how much freight is actually moved, how many, just all the demographics associated with transportation, and bringing forth the parking crises to the general population. So bringing forth the constraints about the supply chain to the general population so that they can understand that the 43 million people associated with supply chain, uh, all the struggles that we deal with are are out there, and that the general populace actually understand it. And that doesn't necessarily just apply to the truck driver role, but all of it affects. So there's 43 million people or whatever it is associated with supply chain, and the problems with the supply chain all trickle down to the driver.
It does.
So all of them trickle down to the driver, whether it's detention, parking, restrooms,
Oh,
good food and healthy food for them to eat, maintenance, whatever the case may be. All of those things end up trickling down to our guys on the road, guys and girls on the road. So, which speaking of our female folks in the supply chain, women make up half of the general workforce, but in trucking, that number is dramatically lower. And I will say this, being in transportation, 28 years, um, that's changed a lot in 28 years. A lot for movements like women in trucking and many, many other people.
mhm.
That's gotten to be a much larger percentage than what it once was. So at one time, I had a lot of drivers, and we had virtually no women drivers in that list. So, but what's the real reason, or what's your opinion about women behind the wheel and women in leadership roles, and how do you feel that we continue to advocate and change that going forward?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it is trying to help teachers when they're enrolling students and making it a class welcoming to women and really promoting women in the industry So after the Mid-America Truck Show this year, we usually have 300 to 400 students that are diesel tech students that come to the Mid-America Truck Show. Schools will bring buses of students, and it's a really fun thing for them to get to do. And Women in Trucking always brings their trailer. Well, afterwards, they're going to go up to one of our programs in Indiana and do a promotional Women in Trucking event for the school that just enrolled their first female student. And hopefully they'll get more female students when they see this other female doing the program. So it's really being intentional about getting more women in the program and showcasing those women in the program. I mean, I love it when I see a female student doing diesel or as a driver.
Right.
And I mean, they're just so cool. Like, I'm like, that girl, she is a baddie. She is so awesome. Like, I want to be her. Right. And so it's just really showcasing those women who are strong and who are amazing drivers or amazing mechanics, and having them be a role model for the younger generation.
I agree. It's always great to see that. And, we have a organization here on the technology side, which actually has a similar demographic to the transportation side. And we have a number of women on our team here at GLCS, a number of women in leadership roles as well. And, it's just nice to see that. And the more that are in leadership, the more that are mentors and that can show the path, the better off I think everyone is. So it's taken a village to make it happen, and it's taken a couple generations, actually 27 years, to go from no one to someone. But as we continue to move on, in another 10 years, we'll be in a bigger position, I think. And as those jobs become more desirable, and we're seeing that happen, but as those jobs become more desirable, I think it becomes more desirable for everyone, including, people that don't. I mean, who really wants to drive for 3 weeks out at a time? So that's how I started driving. It was 3 weeks out, 3 days off. That's what we did.
Wow. That is, that's
So,
tough. I mean, and I think that that's a great job maybe for a younger person that wants to
no, it wasn't. It wasn't a great job. It was a horrible job. Before cell phones, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh. Oh,
That's
that is true. Yeah.
horrible.
You had
But
the
now
FM
today
and
with the
AM
cell phone,
radio.
yeah, you had CB, you had so back then you didn't even have the whatever it was. You eventually you had these things where you plug in the cable television, and then that was probably about the time cell phones were really hitting mainstream. So you'd have, but otherwise you were like, maybe you had VHS movies in your truck if you're lucky. But I mean, I didn't even have I didn't even have a condo sleeper back then. So it was like a 48-inch sleeper. I mean, it was pretty bad stuff. So and then it gets worse as you go back in time, like the guys with the coffins back in the 70s. So, that, or before then, if I go back to my great uncle, he would tell me about how he'd lay a board across the driver and passenger seat and throw his sleeping bag on it and sleep there. So, this industry's gotten a lot better into the modern trucks of today. So, it's definitely a different thing. But 3 weeks out, 3 days off, about the time that you're getting used to being home, you got to go back out. And if you wanted to call somebody, you're plugging quarters. So that,
Oh, yeah. Wow.
different thing. Yep.
Crazy. I hadn't thought about that.
Yep. It's a different time back in the day. So, definitely a different time. And you know what? I definitely would love it if you hang around after this a little bit, because I want to talk to you about mats. So we're going to have a crew of people there, and definitely would love to chat with you about that.
Okay.
So final question, and then we'll start wrapping up. So you've dedicated your career to shaping the future of trucking, but if you had to pinpoint one moment or one conversation or one success story or one personal experience that reaffirmed your belief in this mission, what would it be?
I think I would probably have to center around our co-founder, Dave Dine. I mean, he is incredible. And he is really captivating with his story and his history and how he has, evolved into what he's doing today. And so I think that just knowing Dave and getting to work with him on a daily basis, and we both have the same vision. We're both all about the mission because we see how this mission can take an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, take a person that really is a good person, but they're maybe making bad decisions, and we can help them get into a new career. We can help them get the skills they need to have a successful life. And so we created Next Gen for the industry. But when we are seeing lives change, it's pretty quickly we learned this is all about that one person, right? It's all about each and every person that can take this class, that can get this certification, get this skill, and hopefully find a job that they love, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what it's all about. Now, talking about being out for 3 weeks at a time, that doesn't sound like an amazing job that they love.
Not so great. Not so great. But I did it, and I fell in love with the industry. I didn't necessarily fall in love with the job, but I went to school for law enforcement, and I spent some time around that side of the career, and I danced around different jobs related to driving and ended up in an office and fell in love with the industry, fell in love with the people. And so, I just wrote down something, and I wrote down lots of things, and we never circled back to them because we never needed to come up with other topics. But, this industry creates futures. And at 18 years old, if you don't know what your future is going to be, this industry will create a future for you if you let it do that.
You're so right.
It isn't for everyone because it does require hard work. It doesn't matter if you're behind the wheel or if you're behind a desk, it requires hard work. But it will create a future for you. It's one of the largest, debatably how you look at it, it is the largest industry in the world if you look at it from one particular angle. But it does create futures, and it creates a healthy future and a very desirable future. We used to say trucking isn't rocket science. Well, guess what? We now have rocket scientists working for trucking companies and optimization tools and whatnot. So it is rocket science. We're one of the most complex industries in the world today, with the way that we move freight, with the way that we look at freight, and that's all in support of our men and women that are holding the wheel, and how they're moving freight and how we're loading the trucks so that they can move down the road and deliver freight. So the industry creates futures, and I think what you're doing is absolutely wonderful, and I'm in complete support of it. So
I appreciate it. I have to show you something really funny and cool. It's so cool. So I was shopping with my 15-year-old daughter, and I was at Urban Outfitters, right? Urban Outfitters is like the cool store for people. And I got this hat that's a truck, right? It's long haul trucking at Urban Outfitters. So if you're saying trucking's not cool, well, Urban Outfitters are saying it's cool, and they're selling this hat to teenagers and young 20-somethings.
That's Urban Outfitters. That's crazy. So, who would have thought? So,
who would have thought? See, we're cool. We're cool.
Yeah, fair enough. So, fair enough. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Lindsey, how can people get a hold of you?
Hey, you can follow me on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn page. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can email me, lindsey@nextgentrucking.org. And, we'd love to connect. We'd love to see what we can do to help and connect in any way that we can.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate your time, Lindsey. If you have a couple minutes, can hang around. I'd love to talk with you a little bit more. Otherwise, we'll get a time set up here in the next week or so to chat. But thank you for coming on. I'll wrap this up here in a minute, and we will talk with you soon.
Thanks.
All right. The future of trucking isn't some distant problem. It's happening right now. Every day, we're either building a stronger industry or letting it slip through our fingers. And let's be real, if we don't step up, someone else will decide what happens next. And if we let that happen, we don't just lose jobs, we lose a piece of this country's identity. The truth is, trucking has always been built by the bold, the ones willing to take the wheel and move forward when no one else will. That's why this conversation matters. That's why people like Lindsey are out here fighting to make sure the next generation has a shot, and not just at a job, but at a future worth chasing. So, to everyone listening, this isn't just about trucking. This is about opportunity. This is about proving that hard work still matters. And this is about making sure that the road ahead isn't just open, but that it's worth driving. Thanks for listening in. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation.